Hey guys, it's Exa and welcome back to my channel. If you've been following me for a while, then you've probably noticed that I haven't posted in like 4 or 5 months now. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I've just been really busy, had a lot of life changes recently. Haven't been working on a lot of projects, but I'm here to say that things are kind of starting to get back to a new normal. And I will be posting more videos more regularly, hopefully. So if you are new, please hit that subscribe button. There'll be lots of fun stuff coming up shortly. And if you are still here, thank you for hanging on and being patient while I haven't been posting lately. So to go ahead and get started for this video, I have been wanting to do this for a really long time actually. So I really love the designer like shopping bags with the brand logos on them. They're so pretty, but they're really not functional and usable, long term because they're usually made of cardboard. So I decided to come up with a plan to turn one into a actual functional purse using some leather and PVC to protect the cardboard and make it sturdy and supportive for everyday use. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay guys, so there's actually a lot of supplies for this particular project that we have going on here. So first we have our Louboutin shopping bag, which I've actually already cut apart just to get the two sides that I'm going to use, but we'll go over that process in a minute. So that is the first thing you're going to need is whatever bag you're going to use. Then the next thing you're going to need is your coordinated leather color that you want for your sides of your bag and your stitching and all of that stuff. So I'm going with a red just because of the iconic Louboutin red color. So we have 3 sheets of this that are 12 by 12 squares to use for this project. And then to protect our shopping bags on the front, we want to use some like PVC plastic. So this is actually like a table cover thing, like those old plastic ones that grandma used to have. So we're going to be using some of this to cut apart to make a cover to go on the outside, so that way we won't get any staining or anything on our nice cardboard bag here. So you can use leather and make your own straps and handles if you want, but I was feeling kind of lazy, so I just have some pre-made straps. You can buy these on Amazon. They're like replacement bag straps, and it's super handy because they're already made and they're not that expensive. They're like $10. So we got that, and then a crossbody strap because I honestly put a crossbody strap on every single bag that I use. They're really handy for me, but if you just want one with regular handles, you can do that, or you can just do a crossbody strap and not have regular handles. It's totally up to you. Now, to attach all of our sides, I did buy some leather cord. This is just a 2mm cord in the coordinated red color again, but you could do a different color if you want, or you could use actual like the wax corded thread if you didn't want to use leather cord for that as well, and that's just going to be used to loop around the edges and attach all of the pieces together. So if we're going to be using cord, that means we need to have holes punched for the cord to go through instead of using like a normal needle and thread system. So I have a hole punching thing, which is actually specifically designed for using with leather, and it has a couple different sizes of punch, so that way we can use that to make our holes. Nice and easy. So with that, that's all of the supplies we need, minus, a pair of scissors and a measuring tape, and we can go ahead and get started. And guys, finally with our supplies for the main part of the bag, I do just have a piece of random cardboard that I'm going to put on the bottom to make it sturdy, so that way my bag will stand up on its own, because the leather that I'm going with on the sides is, like a soft calfskin, so otherwise the bag will just kind of flop over, and I would rather it be sturdy and be able to stand upright on its own. So we will put a piece of cardboard in the bottom. All right, guys, so for the hardware stuff, I have these little screw-on rivet things that we will use to help attach our straps with, because I don't have a rivet making machine, so it's so much easier to just be able to screw these pieces together. And I will link everything that I purchased in the description box down below. Pretty much everything is from Amazon, so you can go ahead and buy the exact same supplies that I have to create your own bag. Now to attach the crossbody strap, I have the same kind of rivet system, but they just already have little hook things on them. I've used these on a number of projects and I absolutely love them. So definitely recommend this if you want to put a crossbody strap onto your tote bag, to use these because they are just so quick and easy. So to attach our main straps, I have a bunch of D-rings. We're only going to need 4 for this project, 2 for each handle per each side. So yeah, but these, again, really handy, and we can use the little pieces of leather to kind of loop them around, and that just makes for a really nice professional looking attach point for our handles. Some handles that you can buy on Amazon already have the other half that like goes on the bag part itself that you can sew on or rivet on, but the ones I got are just like the handle piece themselves with a loop, so we need the D-rings to attach the other half. Next up, I have just some little metal feet to put on the bottom of the bag, so that way, I like ones that sit on the little metal feet instead of getting the bottom of the leather bag dirty by whatever surfaces you are setting it on. So these are really, really easy to put in. They're just like little tabs, kind of like little brads, so you can just pop those in handy dandy and keep the bottom of your bag nice and clean. And finally, instead of installing like a zipper clasp closure for the top, I have some of these little magnetic closures that I can just put in there, so that way it'll kind of gently hold the bag closed. Do keep in mind this isn't the most secure system. If you want something that you can really truly button up and keep it secure, then I would definitely recommend going with like a zipper system instead of these little pieces. So the last thing you're going to need is a pair of scissors and a screwdriver to attach all of your little rivet things with. And we're going to need some double-sided tape. I just have some random stuff that I use for like nail sets and things. It doesn't need to be super strong, just something that way you can hold your bag onto your leather piece as you're stitching it all together, so that way it doesn't shift and move around. But once you have all of the sides secured, it should stay in place pretty well on its own, so you don't need crazy strong tape. Any regular old double-sided tape that you probably have in your junk drawer will work for this. So the first thing we need to do is cut our shopping bag, so that way we have our pieces for the sides. So I decided that my bag is going to be about 10.5 inches by 10.5 inches, so I'm going to cut this out to a 10-inch square. So I am using 2 rulers here to make sure that I'm getting it centered, so that way the logo is nicely put in the middle, and then just marking where I need it to be, so that way it is 10 inches tall and 10 inches wide. Pretty straightforward. If your design isn't centered or you want it off-centered, feel free to, mark how big you want it and where you want it at whatever position that you like. But I decided that I wanted to have it centered in the middle and then have the Paris part of the logo still on the bottom, so we're going to make the bottom flush with the original bottom of the bag. Excuse me, Poof. I love you, but can I have my project back? Please? Thank you. Okay guys, so I kind of pre-trimmed it just because I'm going to use the paper cutter and it is not big enough for the whole bag. So I just kind of pre-trimmed. Now I do want to make sure you want to have one edge that is still perfectly straight that you have not cut when you use this, so that way you have a guide to start making all your other edges straight. So for me, that's this bottom edge, so we're going to have that nice and straight, and we'll start going this way and then rotate around to cut the whole thing. So now that we have both pieces cut out, we can go ahead and get started cutting our leather and other pieces for the rest of the bag. So first I'm going to use one each of the 12 by 12 sheets to make the 2 main sides of the bag, since these are the biggest part. So I am actually just laying my Louboutin logo down with about a 1/4 inch gap around the sides. That is all the space we're going to need to be able to put in our stitching. So I'm just marking this with a pen because it's way easier than having to measure it, because I already have the nice square edges of my sides cut out. So you can just go ahead and mark that where you want and then cut those pieces out. And remember, you do need 2 of them because you have 2 sides to your shopping bag. Alright, so for the other 2 sides and the bottom of our bag, I decided I'm going to cut my 12-inch piece into 3 sections so I can get all of them out of the one sheet, which means each one is going to be 4 inches, which I also feel like is a nice width for a bag. You don't need, you know, a massive size since this bag is already kind of tall. So we are just going to cut that into thirds here, making sure that they're each the same size and cutting those out. And then we will cut the little bit off of the length of each one in a minute to make sure that they are going to be that about 10.5, 11 inches tall, the same height as our main sides of our bag. So I did kind of cheat here. Instead of measuring the length, I just put one of my main strips down on top of it so that way I could draw a straight line and make sure that they are indeed all going to be the same length. Alright, so the next thing that we need to cut out is our little attach points that our D-rings are going to be looped around to hold on our handles. Again, if you bought one of those pre-made handle sets that already has these pieces together, you don't need to do this step, but since mine are literally just the handle part, I need to have some way to secure them to the sides of the bag, so we're going to use our little bits of leather scraps that we have left over to make those. So first here I'm just measuring the width of the D-ring to make sure that it's going to nicely fold over and be the correct width of those D-rings. And then I'm just kind of freeform drawing my shape. I'm going with the like teardroppy shape for the bottom, but you could make them rounded or leave them as squares, whatever, it's totally up to you. And then once you have the bottom part, then you can go ahead and start cutting it out, and then we will cut straight up for the part that loops around the D-ring. But make sure you don't stop there. You want to have enough length so that way when you double it over, your rivets will go through both halves and fully secure the D-ring onto this fabric piece here, so that way it's, you know, not going to fall off or anything. Once I've cut enough that I think is going to be the right length, you can slip your D-ring on there and fold it over just to make sure that you do have enough. You want it to go all the way down pretty much to the end of the length of your top edge here, so that way your rivets fit, but so that way you know, the edge doesn't stick out past that and look kind of ugly. So we can just cut that to the length that we want, and then we're going to need to replicate this, so we have 4 of them that are all matching. So now that we are all done cutting out our pieces, we should have 2 big pieces for the sides, 2 smaller pieces to go vertically in between them, 1 for the bottom, and then 4 of our attach points. Alright, so the last couple things we're going to need is to cut our PVC for the top, which I somehow lost the footage of me doing that, but they're the exact same size as the 2 front and back pieces. And then we're also going to trim the cardboard for the bottom to make it nice and sturdy, which is what I am doing here. So then we can go ahead and start punching our holes to get started with the project. So the next thing we need to do is kind of assemble our side layers together, so that way when we sew it all together, you know, it looks how it's supposed to. So I'm taking that double-sided tape and just putting some strips around the edges and one through the middle on the back of my cardboard shopping bag pieces. Again, this is just to kind of hold it in place while we're stitching it, and once the finished bag is done, then it's not going to be important because the stitching is going to hold everything in place. So it's okay if you don't have really strong tape, or if you just put it on the corners or whatever. It's probably okay as long as it's just kind of holding it in place so it doesn't shift as you are punching your holes and stitching it together. So once you have that done, I just went all the way around all 4 sides and then 1 piece through the middle. You can line that up on top of your leather and press it down, making sure it's about as centered as you can get it. And then we're going to take some small pieces just on the corners on the front of the leather, right where our stitching is going to go, so that way it is hidden by the stitches. You won't see the tape. And then we're going to put that PVC that we cut out that I forgot to film down on that. And that's just going to hold all of those layers together, so that way when we are punching our holes through the PVC and the leather, that it will stay together and lined up correctly, and our bag will look nice and finished and square when we're done. So using this handy dandy hole punching tool was probably like one of the best purchases I've ever made. It was super easy to just go through and make all of my hole punches about the same distance apart, just chugging right along. As you can see, I mean, this is 2x speed because watching me do this is, you know, kind of boring. But you get the point. Super easy, just punching holes all the way around all of our pieces. So we're going to go all the way around our 2 front and back pieces, and then one of our of the other 3 pieces. One of them we're going to go on all 4 sides because that's going to be our bottom. And the other 2, you only want to do 3 sides because you're not going to have to stitch anything along that top edge there. So we're just going to leave that plain with the rough edge of the leather. So as you can see here, this one has punches all the way around all 4 sides. So this is my bottom piece, and the other 2 only have hole punches on one of the short sides. Okay, so I totally forgot to film me putting the little snaps in here. But basically they are through the leather, and then because we have the cardboard in front, you can't see them at all. So if we look on the inside here, you can see they just go through. Callie, what are you barking at? So they just go through. Here I just cut little slits, and then that's where these little ends come through, and then there's a little piece that goes on the back to help hold it in place, and then you just fold them over like little brads. Super easy. So I did 2 on each half, so that way it's just because it's such like a wide bag that I went with, so that way it'll help keep it nice and secure. So that's that, and now we can go ahead and start on our stitching with the thread. Alright guys, so kind of sneak peek here. As you can see, my bag is kind of partially sewn, but I wanted to put this section in here because you should definitely do this before you sew it together. I kind of forgot. So what I'm doing is I'm just using some pointy plier scissor things for leather working that I have, and cutting holes in the bottom to put the feet in. I just eyeballed it, but you can definitely measure if you want to be more precise. And then you're just going to poke those through, and again, they're like little brad things, so you can just sort of bend the insides out, and then that'll hold them securely. As you can see here, just kind of bending that over, holding those in place. And again, don't worry that they're kind of sticking out because we have that cardboard piece that's going to go on top of these on the inside, which will also further help make sure that they stay in place. Okay guys, so first I cut some thread, and then we're going to start sewing just the top edge of the front and back pieces here to seal up that top edge, and then we'll start going down the sides from there. I did start with about 2 yards worth of thread, and that did get me decently far, but I will show you how I hid the seams for where one thread ended and another one started. So we're just going to go looping through one over and over the other, so that way it's kind of making this nice seal across the top edge, so you won't have that raw leather edge and the PVC kind of sticking out on the top. It's going to make a nice finished edge. As you can see here, I just had to keep this in because Moo was being such a cute little assistant, and she stole my thread every single time I looped it through, and it definitely made this project take a lot longer than it probably should have, but, you know, I love my little Snug-a-Moo, so that's fine. But once you're done with the top edge, it's going to look something like this, nice and even, and then we can start going down this side here, continuing with our same string that we were using. We'll just start going all the way down the side. So as you can see here, I got overzealous, and I kind of already stitched some of the other sides together. But it's the same process for all of them. So if you're starting the first one, you're just going to line up your edge of the side piece with the edge of the front, and you will go ahead and do the same stitch method going through both pieces, looping around in a circle. So as you see here, I do have my little awl with me, and I found that was really helpful to make sure that my holes were staying nice and lined up. I could poke it through both pieces, then pinch the two together, so that way when I was putting my thread through, it went through both easily at the same time instead of having to do one and then, you know, kind of wiggle it around and find the line for the next one. So if you do have an awl or like a thick sewing needle or any kind of, you know, sharp pokey device thing, that can be really helpful for making this easier and faster to line up your holes together. So once you get started, you can see I'm just going to show you a little piece here going down the side. So I have the front piece, I have the thread looping over, and it's including that back piece as well to make a nice tight seam to hold our bag together. So I'm just going to keep threading through all of the sides until I get all 4 sides attached together. Make sure when you are lining up your side pieces that part that doesn't have the holes is at the top of the bag. You don't want to accidentally make your bag upside down. That would suck because then you'd have to unsew a bunch of it so that way you could, you know, put them the right way. So make sure that you're doing it with the correct direction, so that side piece, the ones that have holes on the 2 long sides and only one of the short sides, that the one side with the holes is at the bottom for whatever direction you would like your bag to face. So skipping ahead, you can see I now have a bunch of them sewn together. So I just need to close up this last side here to put my bag all together like that. And then we can attach the bottom as the last thing that we are going to do that involves our thread and stitching. Alright, so now it's time to do our bottom piece. I have all 4 sides together. So we're just kind of going to line that up and start in one of our corners with our extra cord that's already sticking out from the corner here. And we're going to go through the bottom corner on one side and then through the new bottom piece that we're putting on, and then through the next side. So that way we're going to make sure that we don't have any holes in our corners and they're nice and secure. So then once you do the corner, you can just continue to stitch along the 2 sides together, just like we've done with all of the other sides, until you have finished attaching your whole bag. Alright guys, so here is where I'm going to show you what I do when I run out of thread and I start a new one. So I'm going to make my first loop in here and then just kind of run the cord along the edge of that seam. And then as I am pulling these tight, it's kind of going to knot itself. So you're going to have that end sticking out in the middle between your 2 edges, and then you're just going to keep looping around, and that's going to hold that tight. So you do only need about 1 inch of extra thread from both, the one that you are hiding that you just finished stitching and the new one that you are starting stitching. So I'm just going to stick the 2 in there, and then this is going to make a nice tight seal as we're going through. Okay guys, so now it's time to attach our little handle pieces. Again, if you already bought a bag tip that already has these, then you can totally skip this section. But basically we're going to take our hole punch and punch through 2 holes, one towards the top right below where the D-ring will be, and then one further to the bottom so that way it's not like, flapping around and being annoying. So I am using a bigger hole punch for this because the rivets going through are bigger than my thread. So you want to make sure that you're making your holes in according size. So once we do that, we can flip it over and then punch through the second layer to make sure that it's going through the back and the front how we want it. You could do this in one step, but if your leather is kind of thick like mine, I found it was easier to do it in 2 punches just because I didn't have the finger strength to do it all in one. So once we've punched that, then we need to make the corresponding holes on our bag so that way the rivets will go through the bag and the handles and hold it all together. So as you can see here, I still kind of struggle getting my holes all the way punched out. So this is where your awl can be really handy to kind of just poke through the last little bit and make sure that you get those pieces out of the way so that way your rivets will fit in nicely. Alright, so again, I got kind of overzealous and forgot to film me attaching the first one, but that's what it'll look like when it's done. So again, here, to make them even, you probably want to measure it. I really hate measuring, honestly, so I just kind of eyeballed it, used the edge of my pen here to make sure that it lined up, and called that good enough for me. But if you want to be super precise, then please measure from the edges of your bag to make sure that they are going to be symmetrical where you want them. So then we're going to just put where those holes are and then kind of just make a little mark inside each hole on the side of our bag. So when we're punching that, we can make sure that they're going to line up together. So obviously now we're going to take our hole puncher and punch those holes where they are to make sure that everything lines up nice and neatly together. This is a bit of a tough punch because you're going through PVC and a piece of cardboard and our backing leather. So as you can see here, I didn't get all the way through that back leather again. It was a little tough just because of the volume of material I was going through, so I'm just going to use my awl again and kind of punch those out all the way and make sure that the holes are fully open. So now it's time to put our rivets on. So the smooth side are going to be on the outside and the side with the little screw ends are going to be on the back side. I did get a pack that had a couple different sizes of these, so you might need to play around with your rivets to make sure you're getting one that's going to be a tight fit and not have extra space to wiggle around, but that does go all the way through all the layers. So as you saw, I just put it through all of those, looped the D-ring in there, and then stuck it through the back of the bag here, so that way all of the layers are attached together in the correct order. And then we can take our back pieces, and this is the part with the little screw end, as you can see, and I'm just going to press those into place and screw them in so they are nice and tight and hold it all together. So these are really handy little rivets with the screws on them because, as you can see, it's super easy to install them. You don't really need any special tools, and they do seem super secure and sturdy. If you are a little worried about them coming loose, you can put a dot of like super glue on the inside as you're screwing it in, and that will make sure they won't loosen. So now we can just take our handle, and these came with these handy little snaps on them, which made it super easy for me to hook these ones in. Just snap them on, bada bing, bada boom, and now you have handles. Alright guys, we're finally closing in on the finish line for this project, so the last thing is to punch some holes on the sides here to attach our crossbody strap. If you're not doing a crossbody strap, then congratulations, you are done with your bag. But for me, I am going to do that, so I have, again, these handy little rivet screws that already have loops to attach my crossbody, so I just punched my hole in the center where I want it, and then just screwed those on, and you are ready to go and attach your strap. Ta-da! Here is the finished bag, and it came out even better than I thought it would. It is absolutely perfect and amazing and functional for everyday use. I totally adore it. Thank you for watching and subscribing to my channel. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button because we're going to have a lot of fun tutorials coming out in the next few weeks. I swear, I know I say that all the time and then I don't do it, but I'm actually going to do it this time. So be sure that you are subscribed so that way you don't miss any future content. Thanks, guys.